Hey everybody, this is Andy Graham of the Herald Times Sports Department, and we're pleased and privileged today to have the great Bill Mallory here with us in the studio as part of our series of Indiana University Hall of Fame presentations. And Bill is rightfully revered and respected by IU people everywhere, not just as a great coach, but as a great guy. Speaking of his coaching, this man coached more winning football games than anybody in IU history, 66 of those. He finished with an overall career record of 168, 129, and 4, which included stops at Miami of Ohio and Colorado and Northern Illinois. Since his departure, IU has had 5 coaches go combined 74 and 149, just by contrast. Bill became the first ever coach to win back-to-back Big Ten Coach of the Year honors. That was in 1986 and 1987. He led IU into the top 20 rankings both of those years. Last fall, IU went to its first bowl game under Kevin Wilson. That was the first bowl since 2007, only the second since 1993. From 1986 to 1993 under this man, Indiana went to 6 bowls in 8 years. IU went 53, 38, and 3 during that span. It went 33, 30, and 1 in Big Ten play. And it was the 1987 team. Coach Mallory's team was the only team in Indiana history to beat Ohio State and Michigan in the same season. And I guess we'll maybe just sort of start there, Bill. In 1987, I happened to be in the Ohio State press room about as close to Earl Bruce as I am to you right now, when he said this is the darkest day in Ohio State football history. And I think Indiana people probably found that both a little amusing and insulting. How did you take that?
Well, there was a lot of pride, in that game that we wanted to definitely win. Mm-hmm. We had not beaten Ohio State in 36 years, so that became one of our goals. Our first goal was get an education, graduate, and prepare themselves for the future, and certainly why they're here, at IU to do that. But our second goal then was to beat Ohio State.
Beat the Buckeyes.
And the previous year, we played them right down to the wire. We got a standing ovation when we walked into the locker room, and I thought, I'm going to have to say something to these guys. We're not into for this, we're out to get the W. I didn't have to. I mean, I could tell they were hurting. And so when we started with January of '87, there was no question. Our seniors stood and they said, what our number 2 goal is? Beat Ohio State. Yeah. And I said, the Buckeyes, we've got to go there. And so we got to be ready because those fans will get a little on the excited side. But our players really worked hard, prepared, and went in and just did a great job. We were 10-10 at halftime, but that second half we came out and we were ready to play.
Yeah, it ended up 31-10.
31-10, yeah, right. And we shut them down pretty good. So it was a great feeling to come out of there with that victory.
Well, you shut them down even more decisively probably the following year. And well, let's talk a little bit about that. I'll go back to October 7th, 1988.
Correct.
Ellie, your ever lovely wife, Ellie, her whole family, like 14 members of her family were in town. And she explained to me one time, she said, they were more concert-going people rather than game-going people.
Exactly.
They weren't involved in athletics, right? But
environment for them.
But the IU and the town was going to throw a big pep session before the night before the Ohio State game, and Ellie invited her family. They'd never been to a pep session before, so let's go say. So this goes back to the Buckeye crushing I talked about earlier. You had a visual aid, so to speak. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, that Buckeye. Of course, a lot of people don't know what a Buckeye was. So anyway, I told them. Of course, the players did, because I'd have a Buckeye and I'd usually stomp on it when we take the field.
So you just carry around in your pocket, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we had the pep rally downtown, so I pulled out that Buckeye and I put it down on the floor and then I crushed it with my foot and I said, it's what we're going to do to them tomorrow. And we did. We went out and had a good win. So.
Ellie said she looked over at her family, who basically had only known you like at dinner parties or whatever before. And their mouths were hanging open. They hadn't quite seen the inspirational speaker, Bill Mallory.
I guess maybe didn't see the other side that I could fire up. So,
Well, you're a Sandusky native, so obviously, Ohio and Ohio State meant a lot to you. Anyhow, I remember in your yearbook. your nickname was Swish because you were a 4-year basketball.
Jordan. Well, my dad was a basketball coach, so
Okay.
I grew up in that environment until we moved to Sandusky. After he got out of education, went into business, went as a salesperson with a feed company, and in fact, the feed company was Master Mix Feed out of Fort Wayne.
Oh, okay.
But the territory was Sandusky, and that's how we moved there. So it was my sophomore year that we moved in there, and the head football coach got a hold of me. He said, "Do you think about coming out for football?" And I said, "Yeah, I had." I said, "I've never played it." He said, "You just come out." He said, "That's our role, to coach you." So I did, and I was blessed to have a great head coach and a great program, one of the top programs in the state there. So that's how I really got into football, and just the passion really kicked in, even though I still played my basketball and so forth and enjoyed it. But I could see football was the game I was really getting into.
Well, I saw it, even your profile in the yearbook said, you intended to coach, and football was the sport.
Exactly.
Talk a little bit about, there was a family down the street apparently that invited you to the Horseshoe, I think in 1951, to go see a game. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, that was my sophomore year, and they were Buckeye focused there in Sandusky, and my dad had gone to Ohio State, so he was an Ohio State grad. So, but anyway, they said, "Would you like to go and see an Ohio State game?" And I said, "Heck yeah!" I couldn't get in the car quick enough. And so we went, and it was 1951. And who do we play? Or Ohio State plays Indiana, and that was the year that Indiana beat Ohio State, and that was the last time then. And, so I saw that as a sophomore. So I related that to the team that I was there when I did see Indiana beat Ohio State in 1951.
Yeah, and Woody Hayes swore that he would never lose to Indiana again.
I heard that often.
And he never did.
No.
But you got to coach as an assistant with Woody. You went to Miami, where great coaches like Eric Parseghian and John Pont were there.
Exactly.
Then you coached with Woody, Carmen Koza at Yale, Dwight Perry at Bowling Green. You had some really good coaches to come up with and kind of learn the craft.
Yeah, I was blessed. First of all, I had a great high school coach, Jeff Haven, and Jeff was a person that pulled me aside, and he says, "I think there's a good school for you. They're interested in you." That's Miami, Ohio, and so that's where I went. He said, "I think you'd be a good fit there, and Eric Parseghian is interested in you." So that all worked out well, and that's how I really got started. It was a great school to attend. In fact, Ellie ended up, my wife, going there also. But so then that's when I became affiliated with Eric Parseghian. I couldn't have played for a better coach. Now, John Pont was my freshman coach, and then at that time you were not eligible your first year. You played a freshman schedule. So then I played under Era my sophomore and junior year, and had very good teams and very good success. And it was my junior year we beat Northwestern, and so then going into my senior year, he's named the head coach at Northwestern. Eric Parseghian was. And then that's when John Pont then moved up as head coach. So I played for John my last year there at Miami. So I was very blessed to play for two outstanding college coaches.
Well, John Pont, of course, was the coach that took Indiana to the Rose Bowl in 1967. Miami of Ohio, still called the cradle of coaches for good reason. This man is one reason why. We talked about the darkest day. I remember another day, wasn't quite as dark, but it was still pretty bright from an Indiana point of view, when Anthony Thompson ran for 377 yards, a single season NCAA record at Wisconsin in I want to say 1989. We'll talk a little bit about number 32 and some of Bill's other great players in our second segment.